Hello everyone, welcome to Code with Femi. In this video, we're going to be continuing on the SQL crash course. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the DML commands. In the last video, we actually covered the DDL commands, which is your data definition language commands, which is your create, your alter, your truncate, your drop. But in this actual video, we're going to be looking at the DML commands. What is DML? DML stands for data manipulation language, and this is the way you actually manipulate data in the database. This is how you create your data in a table. You read information from data from your table, you update the data, and as well as delete. So let's go straight into it. So the first one we're going to look at is create. Let's just switch to the screen. So in here, it's just gonna close all of this so that we don't have anything in our way. And basically in here, we just want to create a new query, right? So from the previous video, I'm just going to create a new database. So, and then we'll call this DML commands. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So create database. Let's call this DML commands. Right? Call it that as the name of our table. And guess what? I didn't use master, and this is because it's set here already for me to master. So that's the current context, which is fine. Just execute. That will create a new database for me, which is DML commands, right? Let's refresh this so we can see that. See that we have DML commands in there, which is amazing. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a basic table like we did the last time. So we'll create a table, call it DML table. DML table, open brackets, and then you can start adding your columns. So ID will be the first one, int, and then we say primary key because this is our primary key. And also primary key states that is actually each record is unique. This is what identifies each record as a unique record. So whenever you want to do other operations, just have to bear that in mind. Identity, you're saying that you want to start from 1 and increment by 1, and then you want to say not null. So basically this would actually also, once you have this, then you know that this would actually be inserted automatically by this. So we have first name and varchar, and then let's make it 50. Let's make it not null as well, which means that is required. Just gonna copy that to make things much faster, and then call this middle. Same story. I'm gonna copy that and call that last. Okay, this is fine to be null, and then remove that comma. So there we have a table already. So if we run this now, you would see that also. Before we run this, let's just say date time. But let's just make sure we follow convention because everything is on in cap locks. Let's say not null, and then in there we can actually execute this. But remember, before we execute this, because now if we execute this, remember what I said, it's gonna create it in the master. If I open the system databases, you can expand tables. You see that there's no table here. If by mistake you actually execute this is gonna create that table in here, and I'll show you now. Refresh, you can see there. So there are cases where you might be thinking, oh, where's my table? So it might be in the wrong place. So just make sure that you're creating your table in the right place. So that's another thing I just want to share with you guys. But this is what we use in here. So just make sure that up here you say use. So it's either you do it this way or you actually go into this drop down and select your database. So with that, you can easily just execute this, and that would create it in the right database for you, which is this one. Let's see there, we have a table there, and then we have columns. That's perfect, right? So the first one that I want to touch on is actually create. So create is actually you creating data in this table. Like that's the actual connect. Okay, connection is broken. See, let's disconnect because there are cases where things can go wrong. Just have to reconnect and be able to see what is going on. So we have that now. Let's say select. Okay, this is happy now. So but as you can see there, we have DML table, right? We have DML table, and then basically there is nothing, is blank. So the first keyword that we want to touch on here is create, right? That is how you create data in that DB, in that table, in the DB table. So how do you do that? You say insert. That's the keyword you use for that. Although we say create there on the document, you might be like, it's confusing, but the reason why this is it, because that is actually an acronym we use, which is called CRUD, right? So you're saying create, read, update, delete. So you might have, this is a lingua we use in most cases in the IT space when we say CRUD operations. This means that we're talking about how you create data, read data, update data, or delete DB. So just bear that in mind. So when it's the create of the DML, you say insert into DML table. So in here, you open a bracket and then you specify the actual columns that you want to insert into. Remember, this ID is actually something that would automatically insert by itself due to the identity function that we added to the actual column when we were creating the table. So don't worry about that. The first thing you want to worry about is first name, middle name, and then we have last name, and also we have date created, right? This is the actual ones. And the next keyword you want to say is the values that you want to add, right? So which is in quotes. So make sure that you're using single quotes for first name. And also one of the things I want to touch on is your data types. So you see that I use int integer means like it's a number without precision. So we have that, we have nvarchar, which is like your string, takes any character actually. So in there we have first name, I will say Femi, right, comma, and then I will say middle name is O, comma, and I will say last name is Otusonya, and then the date I created this was 2021-10-20. That is when we created this, right? So there are cases where you might need to add multiple values and you don't really necessarily want to repeat this. So this is how you do it. You actually just have to copy that line, paste it, and like that. You can add as multiple record as you want to add. And let's just do that quickly. Let's add multiple lines. I'm just going to add, but just make sure that you have comma separated it, and you don't need the last one. You can just terminate it once you're done. But this is what it should look like, right? I'm just going to say Femi Otusonya. Let's say code with Femi, right? And then this one, let's just say YouTube. Let's see, there's no middle name here. Let's just say no, because remember, for middle name we actually said that we can accept no, so you can just say no there. Then you can say viewers, then we can just say internet. You can make this as well, no, internet users. Okay, so we just have four records, 1 2 3 4 records, and then we can actually just execute this against our table, right? So this is how you create multiple records at a go. If you select just to see what is in the table, you will see that now I have multiple records in my table. Isn't that amazing? I have multiple records in my table. And also, so just bear in mind, you can actually have multiple records this way, or you can actually just insert a single record if you want to, like this. So whatever, whatever you want to do, you can actually do it. So this is the single way and this is the multiple way. So just bear that in mind if you want to like um create data into your table. So now our table is actually filled with data, right? Isn't that amazing? Yeah. We're gonna be using this, as we go along. So basically we've actually covered the first one, which is actually create. So create is done. So now let's look at read. Okay, let's go back. So read is actually another operation, part of the CRUD operation. So what is read? So read is basically you want to see what is in your table. You want to read the information in your table. And how do you do that? You use the keyword select and followed by the names of the columns that you want to see. So there are cases where you want to see all the columns in that table. You want to see the data in all the columns in that table. So you just use a star. This tells you that you want to see everything. So it says select star. That means all columns from, and then followed by the name of your table, which is DML table. And this will literally send back all the data back. You can see that everything has been sent back to us. So, but there are cases where I really don't want to send back everything. I want to send back just specific, data. And this is where you actually change that to say, okay, in this scenario, I just want to see ID, and then you have to use comma to separate the columns you want to see. I want to see first name, and also I want to see the date it was created. So let's say that this is just all you're interested in, right? You do that, and then you will see that has actually like showed us what we want to see. So your read is actually basically reading the table in the way you want to see it. So this is actually very nice. And as well as another example you can actually also do is you can also make sure that there are cases where you might be reading for multiple tables that have like similar names or similar column names, and this is where you want to use something we call aliases. So aliases is actually just to be able to say for this table, this is the alias you want to use, and this actually makes it easy for you to actually like do things in a much more flexible way. So let's say that I have a DML table and I want to like read from DML directly. You can either do it this way, or you can explicitly say DML dot, you can do that if you want to. But if you want to just, for instance, come up with your own maybe readable name, so you can say data manipulation, data manipulation, or you can call it DM. Some people likes to use like short aliases, because they just feel like typing it all the time might not be easy, or you can also do this. So aliases would actually like make sure that they are only selecting that field from that specific table alias that you have actually like specified. So just bear that in mind, but we'll play with this as we go along. But I just want to show you that quickly. But basically this is how you read information from the table, where you can read whatever information, you're not limited. You can read whatever information you want to read. You can see there you can read whatever information, which is really amazing, right? You can actually read whatever you want to read. Nothing is stopping you. You can see there, which is amazing, right? So let's move on to the next one, which is your update. So update is in a scenario where you want to update a record or multiple records in the database. Like let's say that I want to update I saw a record, and for some reason the record, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. Like let's go back to the one with the multiple list, so that we can see, okay, let's say we select from, and I have all of this, and for some reason I'm like, but internet, YouTube I can still add a middle name here. So this is where your ID actually plays a very vital role, because see, yeah, these are all unique. So for me to be able to know what row I want to update, so this is a single scenario where I want to update just a single row. I just want to say, okay, I just want to update this record. So how I do that is I say update, that's the keyword I use, sorry, update, and then the name of the table, and then I say set. So set will now say what do you want to set. So I want to set the middle name, because the middle name, I feel like I can add, there's a value I can add there. Okay, YouTube, because right there we say it's YouTube no viewers, but I want to call them YouTube awesome viewers, right? That's the actual middle name I want to give you guys because you guys are awesome. You said that, and then you say where. So where is very crucial in when you're updating. Just bear that in mind, because if you don't use where and you just execute this as it is, what this is going to do is it's going to update all of this. So just make sure that you're really careful when you're using the update. There must be a where to say where, what record. It's like you saying this is the record I want to update. I'm not updating all my records, I just want to update this specific record. So where actually really helps with that. So we just say where middle name, where ID equals 3. So that is for a scenario where you have you want to use the unique ID. Okay, so basically once you have that in there, which is the actual number of your ID, and so there are cases where you might have, let's say you have cases where the records are almost similar, but the actual ID would help you to record your date. But there are cases where you might want to use other columns to do your where clause, where you can say where first name equals to that name. Okay, so you can do it this way if you want to, if you specifically know that okay, this is the actual column, and you can add multiple and say and. So this is where you can actually start using and say middle name, middle name equals null. Or you can actually continue adding as many columns where you want to be sure that okay, this is the record I really want to update. But just make sure that the where clause is very crucial. So in here you just have to say ID equals 3. If you know that it's just gonna be that you have a unique ID, then basically when you execute this is actually now gonna be updated to this. So we're just gonna run 2 commands together so you can see. Select list from DML commands. Okay, let's just DML table rather, sorry. And also just pay attention to the IntelliSense. Sometimes you just see there's a red under there, it tells you that there's something not great with your query. You can see the invalid object name, so that means that is not a table, it's actually a database. You can select from database, so just bear that in mind. And then if I run the first one, let's run the first one, and also highlighting a command or a query would actually just run that specific query. Execute, this will update it. You can see 1 row affected, and then I can run the second query, which is this one. And as you can see there, YouTube awesome viewers, and you see that you guys are awesome. So that is for update. That is how you deal with update, where you can actually just update a single record. And another example is, let's say for instance I want to update not only YouTube, I want to update also internet, but these are the 2 records. I know that they're only gonna be 3 and 4. So what I can do is I can say where ID is greater or equals to 3. So that means 3 and 4. If I run this is going to update multiple records. Now you can see 2 records were affected, so all IDs that are equals to 3 or greater than 3 would be affected. If I select this, you will see now that I have YouTube awesome viewers, internet awesome users. So I hope that actually helps with understanding how you can now update your record in the DB. So let's move on to the final one, which is delete. Delete is actually how is a command you run to actually remove a record from the DB, your DB table. This is how you remove a record from your DB table. So let's go back. So you see we have records in here, and we really want to delete some records because we feel like there's some specific records that we don't really need. So let's say that I want to delete this one, code with Femi, right? So it follows the same approach as this, which is you saying delete the table name, but you don't need a set this time. You just have to say delete table name and then what you want to delete. So in this scenario, I want to delete this record, this actual record. So I'm going to use my ID and say where ID equals What's the ID? 2. So if I run this, this is actually going to delete just this record. And also bear in mind, same applies to this. If you actually run this, this is actually it's a dangerous query where if you run this is going to delete all of your records in that table. So in a scenario where you don't want to do this, always remember that you need a where clause. Make sure you have a where clause. Just make sure that where clause is always. So this will actually, make sure that you know what record do you want, so you don't delete your entire, data from that table. So I'm going to show you just how to delete a single record and how you can just wipe out the actual table if you want to. So yeah, we just want to delete this record like I said earlier on. So where ID equals 2. So that's the actual place I want to delete. So let's run this. So this would delete that record. So if I say select list from DML table, this would delete that record. You can see there that the record is gone, right? And then the final one is doing this, which is we want to delete everything in here. Just run this. It's as simple as this. When I execute this, this will remove all the records. You can see there all the records have been removed. So when you select from that table, it's blank. So yeah, that concludes this actual session. I hope you guys actually now know what DML commands are all about. And in my next video, we're going to be looking at DCL, the DCL commands, which is your data control language, like, commit, rollback. And we're going to touch on a little bit on what we call ACID. I'm just going to touch on that in that video. So I hope you guys keep well, and I'll see you in my next video. Cheers.